Hey guys, Paul Argueta here. Today I'm going to teach you how becoming a storyteller is going to make you a more successful salesperson. Before we get started, I'd like to thank today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Mortgage Heaven, where mortgages and magic meet. Now, you can learn more about Mortgage Heaven at their website, mortgageheaven.com. They're one of the fastest growing mortgage companies in the state of California. They have great interest rates and amazing programs and incentives for first-time home buyers. A few months back, I ran a Facebook ad campaign where I was offering free 3D virtual tours for homeowners and for business owners. Now, for homeowners, these 3D virtual tours are great for insurance purposes, for remodels, for memories and keepsakes, but they're also really good for marketing purposes, right? And so I ran this campaign and I had several inquiries, and believe it or not, I did these 3D virtual tours for homes and for a very prominent hotel over in Century City. But I had one client in particular that reached out to me. Now, this particular family had purchased a home from me back in 2010. I was representing a bank back then. This was a bank foreclosure, and they had their own agent, right, that was representing them, but they purchased the home. So I was the listing agent at that time. Now, fast forward to 2018. They then reach out to me and they say, hey, listen, Paul, we're thinking about selling our home. We'd love to have one of these 3D virtual tours for us. I'm excited. I'm thrilled because I'm thinking I'm getting a client. I'm going to get a listing. So I agreed to it and I said, no problem, let's make an appointment. We made an appointment for the weekend. It was early in the week, probably about a Monday or a Tuesday, right? Right around Thursday, I'm contacting them to confirm our weekend appointment. And I get a message back from them saying, yes, our appointment is confirmed, but we're going to be using the agent that we use who helped us purchase this home. So they're going to be here with us. So just want you to know where we stand. Now, the old me, right, would have gotten all upset because, you know, they're using another agent, and probably would have said something to the effect of, hey, why don't you go use the other agent then, or go have the other agent do your 3D virtual tour. Why should I do it for you? Instead, what I did was I said, no problem. I'll be there. Make sure that the agent is there too, so that I could teach them how to implement the 3D model, so that I could teach them how to put the 3D model onto their website and onto the MLS. All right. Now, my mentality was, look, I'm just going to offer value. I'm going to help the agent out. Who knows where this is going to go? On the day of the appointment, I contact them to let them know I'm running just a little bit behind schedule. And my client messaged me back, no problem. By the way, we told our other agent not to come. We want to hire you. All right. Now, why did that happen? Because of all the value that I was delivering to them, right? And they knew that they could count on me for that. Okay. But more importantly, here's why I shared that story with you. I just got you emotionally invested in the content that I was sharing with you, right? And so you, as a salesperson, you as an entrepreneur, have to master the art of storytelling, right? Because facts tell, but stories sell. Now, here's the deal. I'm not saying that there isn't a time and place for facts, because there really is. But people make decisions emotionally and then they justify them logically. So when you are in the middle of a presentation, or when you are preparing for a presentation, you need to have facts to justify whatever product or service it is that you're selling. But what you want to become is a master storyteller, so that you can get them emotionally invested, emotionally involved, and then justify their purchase, right? And when I say purchase, that could be a product, but it can also be a service, right? Because if they're hiring you to represent them for whatever that might be, as a real estate agent, as a CPA, as an accountant, as a lawyer, whatever it might be, right? If they're hiring you, then they're purchasing the idea of you representing them. Yes or no? Yes, right? So you want to make sure that you get them emotionally invested, but then help them feel warm and fuzzy by providing them the facts and the documentation that they need to justify it logically. Now, if you don't know and you haven't figured it out by now, I am a real estate practitioner, but I'm also a real estate broker and an entrepreneur. So I own a brokerage with over 100 agents that work for our firm. So I do know what it's like to be an independent contractor, to be a business owner, and to be an entrepreneur, and how to build a business from the ground up. And one of the traits that I did have to develop was this ability, this art form of storytelling. Now, I'm not saying that you want to become a liar teller. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you want to become a storyteller. Now, if you're a brand new, right, entrepreneur, if you're a brand new real estate broker, then your story is going to be a little bit different, right? You have to master what your story is depending on the situation. So if I'm talking to a client and I'm brand spanking new, then my story would be something like, listen, I just got my real estate license and I'm really, really excited about working for you. I'm really, really excited about getting this home on the market for you. I'm really, really excited about committing all of my time and all of my attention to getting this property sold for you, right? That's going to be my story. Now, I can also include my prior experiences, what I've done, what my professional career was like. But my point is, you have to have some type of a story to engage your audience. So ask yourself, what is your story? And when I say what is your story, I'm not saying how many homes have you sold, how many cases have you won, how many clients have you serviced, because at the end of the day, that isn't going to get someone emotionally involved. They really don't care that I've sold over 1,000 homes. What they care about is the one home that matters the most to them, which is which one? Theirs, right? So how are you going to get them emotionally invested into hiring you? You're going to tell them stories, right? And you want to become a master storyteller. And throughout history, if you take a look at some of the greatest leaders that our country has had, they've been good storytellers. You know, Abraham Lincoln was known as a phenomenal storyteller. Martin Luther King, right? Talk about a story there, right? His "I have a dream" speech. Was that a story or what, right? Look at leaders like Elon Musk. Now look, love him, hate him, whatever your opinion is of him, his story is powerful, and the story of how he started multiple businesses. And I'm not even talking about his current projects, right? You take a look back to when he was 17 years old and starting a video game and then selling that and then moving on to what eventually became PayPal. Look, it's all about stories. You have to get good at telling your personal brand story, the story of your company, right? You have to tell them the story of how you've helped other clients and other services, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to become a better storyteller and how that's going to make you a more successful salesperson / entrepreneur. All right, tip number 1. You have to know what purpose the story you are telling is going to serve. In other words, what is the final outcome? So, if I have a client that is telling me that they do not want to reduce the price on their property, even though I know that they are $200,000 overpriced, then my story and what I'm going to share with them should be stories telling them about other clients that have reduced their price to get the property sold, right? So ask yourself, what is the end goal of the story that I'm going to share with them right now? And that means that you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to borrow from your experiences. You're gonna have to borrow from the experiences of other people around you. You're gonna have to borrow from experiences from your company or your firm. You're gonna have to borrow experiences from stories that you've read. The point is, you have to know what the end goal is in mind, right? If we're talking to a buyer, right? Now I'm talking about real estate again. If you're talking to a home buyer and I want them to increase their price because I feel like they're making their offer too low, right? My story would be me telling them about prior experiences where I've had other clients who missed out on a home just because they didn't want to increase their price by $2,500, just because they didn't want to increase their price by $10,000, which was really only going to impact their mortgage payment maybe an extra $60 to $70 a month, which meant that they might have to avoid eating out once or twice a month. And so that's the reason, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to suggest that you go out and make this offer $10,000 more than what you were thinking about asking, because I've had clients in the past who didn't listen to me, all because they didn't want to stop eating out once or twice a month, and it cost them their dream home, which is why I'm going to recommend that we stick to the price that I'm suggesting that you make that offer at. Sign right here. right? That's what I'm talking about. So you want to make sure that you have these stories. And again, storyteller, not liar teller. So once I've told them the story and I've got them emotionally involved, I'm then going to justify that logically. So then what I'll do is I'll probably pull out the comps to show them that homes similar to the one they're thinking about making that offer on have indeed sold for $10,000 more than what they were thinking about making that offer at, right? So again, get them to invest emotionally and then justify that decision logically, right? Number 2, close after each story. Now, what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is after you've gotten the client emotionally invested based on the story you've told, you have to get used to going in for the signature, going in for payment, or going in for the appointment. That is a part of the process, right? And understand that the larger the decision, the more times you will have to close. That may mean that you may have to tell more than one story, okay? And again, stories sell, facts tell. You get them emotionally involved, invested, and then you justify their decision logically by showing them the facts. So a possible scenario or conversation that I'm having with a client that is considering hiring me to list their home would probably go something like this. I see. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what you're telling me then is that you believe that your home is worth $150,000 more than that of the 4 or 5 other homes that are up for sale currently within a quarter-mile radius. Is that correct? Great. Now, let me share with you one of my recent experiences. I just had a client who had a home very similar to yours that just invested about $150,000 in upgrades. They put new carpet, new paint, they just installed a water softener and a brand new HVAC unit. And what we've discovered was that even though they put in $150,000 into their home to make it more sellable, all they did was bring it up to sellable standards and sellable conditions, and ultimately they weren't able to get that $150,000 back. In fact, we ended up selling the home, right, for about the same price as everybody else around them, which is why I'm going to suggest that we stick to our guns and list our price at $850,000. Can I get your signature right here so that I can start the marketing process for you next week? Something to that effect, right? Stories. And then I'm going to pull out the comparables and I'm going to justify it again. Now, every situation is going to be a little bit different, and I realize that that same story might not apply every single time. So don't start using that one because it may not apply to your scenario. But you get my point. You get my drift. The idea here is to explain recent experiences that are applicable to what it is that they'd like to accomplish, right? Every situation is going to be a little bit different, and some may not apply. So, you want to use these sparingly, right? I'm not saying that the entire presentation should be one big anecdote after the other. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you want to use it when it is applicable and when it makes sense and when it feels natural, right? Don't just start telling stories just for the sake of storytelling, okay? So, tip number 2, make sure that you close after every story that you tell. The last and final tip, get your audience engaged using their senses. Now, what do I mean by that? So, recently I had a property that I was representing for sale. It was a great home. And what I asked my clients to do was to go out and put candles from Bath and Body Works, right? And so I wanted these holiday scented candles, and I said, every time I have an open house, every time I have a showing, please make sure that I have a minimum of 6 different holiday scented candles placed throughout the house, right? And we went and we held the open house, and it was on a weekend, and I'll never forget, there was a family, okay? Mom, dad, 2 children with a young girl, and they walked in through the open house. And the very first thing that this little girl said was, "Mommy, Daddy, I want this house. Buy it. It smells like Christmas." That family ended up purchasing that home, okay? What did I just do? I just used a story that engaged you, and it got you emotionally invested, and it made you use your senses. You could almost smell that holiday scent. You could almost smell Christmas. And so this can work both ways, right? So if I have a client and I've noticed that their client has a bunch of cats, right? And I can smell that there's certain odors. I may tell them about the time right, that I had to sell a bank repo that smelled of cat urine, and I had to go out and hire a company like ServPro to come in and oxidize the house so that there weren't any scents so that it could sell faster, right? Those are two completely contrasting stories, both two things that I actually went through, and they're both genuine and they're authentic, and they help get the point across. So the last and final tip when you're using these stories is try to use their senses. Try to get them involved, not only emotionally, but almost to the point where they're using their senses so that they feel like they're really immersed in the entire story. There you have it. Those are 3 quick tips on how to be a better storyteller and ultimately a better salesperson, better entrepreneur. Because even as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to sell people on your vision, okay? And so, if you have any comments or questions, make sure that you participate in the conversation. Below, I'd love any comments that you might have on this training or any questions that you might have, or if you've got any great stories to tell, by all means, share those stories. I monitor the comments and I will respond back to you. All right, thank you to our sponsor again, mortgageheaven.com. Right, make sure you visit their site. I look forward to hearing about your success.